Hello, everyone, and welcome to One Tech World. I'm very excited to be here with you and to introduce you to how we have reshaped localization quality at Deliveroo to go beyond copy quality. I am Elise, and I'm the Senior Localization Quality Manager at Deliveroo. So this is what we're going to be talking about today. I'll give you a brief introduction of Deliveroo and what localization is about. Then we'll move on to a little retrospective to see how we used to handle quality before reshaping the whole process. Then I'll take you through my brainstorm and how I tried to find a solution that was all-encompassing. And then we'll look at the practical side of building it. Finally, we'll dive into the impact of this new process and the result it's been bringing to localization quality. So let's start with the introduction. And Deliveroo first. So some of you might know us really well and use us. Some of you might not know us at all. We were founded 12 years ago by our CEO, Will Shu, when he moved to London. What he found out was while we had a lot of great restaurants and amazing food, not many of them delivered. And that was quite a shock compared to his experience of New York City. So he made it his personal mission to bring the best local restaurants directly to people's doors. And if you look at where we're at now in 2025, we also deliver your favorite meals, your groceries, and your shopping from retail stores. So how do we operate? We are a three-sided marketplace, and we connect our consumers with our riders and our partners across local markets. We operate in 9 markets and in 9 different languages. And for each segment of users, we have different products to test and to quality check. So on the consumer side, we have the consumer app and the website. On the rider side, we have 2 products. We have one for onboarding, and the other one is the rider app that they use for deliveries. And then on the partner side, we have 3 different products. So that's a lot of products in a lot of languages. What's localization? Here again, I don't want to assume that everyone knows what it is. Localization is about adapting a product to meet the needs and the expectations of a specific market, and here of our 9 markets. So translation is an obvious part of localization, but it's not the only one. We also look at adapting the tone and voice to market sensitivities, adapting the design, so the images, the colors, adapting the user interface, making sure we respect legal restrictions, that we offer preferred payment methods, and so much more. For this specific presentation, please keep in mind that here I'm talking about product localization, not marketing, care, services, legal, just product. Okay, we're ready for the retrospective. So I said we're ready, but almost. I would love first to give a couple of definitions because I want to make sure we speak the same language. What I've noticed is that in localization quality management, a lot of the terminology is used interchangeably. So I want to make sure you know what I'm talking about. So let's look at the different types of quality checks that I'll be mentioning today. So you have the scorecard, which is the most used quality check in localization. What they do is they establish different ratings for each type of errors, and this helps us measure linguistic quality. Then you have localization quality assurance, LQAs. They allow our translators to review the final translated content on the design. So I insist on the design, not on the product itself. So they will look at it on the design tool. Then you have the bug bashes. The bug bashes are run alongside our engineers and product managers. I'm sure most of you already know about them. It's about testing the product before we release it, following defined scripts. So this helps us make sure the product is working as expected. And finally, you have quality assurance. Quality assurance is about testing the product after it's been released. And I differentiate them in two types of QAs: the dedicated QA and what I call the maintenance QA. Dedicated QA is about testing a specific scenario or a specific part of the product. Maintenance QA is more about regular health check on the app. So we use the apps the way our users would naturally, without trying to deliberately provoke anything. All right, we are ready for the retrospective now. So how did we used to approach quality? Our previous quality process would start after localization, so after translation, after review. And this is when the LQA would happen. So the LQA would be performed on our design tool, which is Figma. So I'm going to refer to Figma several times. So not on the actual product, again, insisting on this one. And the LQA is very much workload dependent, which means that our team of localization managers could not systematically run them. They are quite time consuming because you create design duplicates, you pull the translation on each duplicate, and this can sometimes break the design the way it wouldn't happen on the app, simply because of the nature of this process, where you have dynamic elements like pricing, for example, that can break the design. And while this specific quality check is really essential for catching early problems in terms of content, localization, design, the issue is that it does not always represent the actual final design on the production environment, on the app itself. The Figma file might be perfectly designed or not, and then there might be a change in the code that creates this variation. The scorecards, to be totally honest, they're quite rare at Deliveroo because we rely on a loyal pool of freelancers, and we know that the content quality is already quite high. So it's only when issues are flagged by our local markets that we will set up scorecards. And then you have the launch of the product, the feature, and you will notice by then that we haven't tested the app in our languages as a localization team. So yes, the engineers would then have tested the app in the different languages, but there's no native eyes, no localization professionals to be here to check. So that was how the previous process was. After the launch, you would have QAs run by me. Again, workload dependent, because I am one person across all the products, and they used to be very time consuming, which is something that I am going to explain just right after. Because of how time consuming they were, there was no possibility for regression testing, or at least not systematic regression testing. And regression testing is about checking that the fixes we've implemented after a QA have been implemented correctly, and that they haven't broken anything else along the way. So they are essential, but they were not systematically run. And yeah, within the QA, there was also little time for like the maintenance QA that I mentioned about regular health checks on the app. You also have the bug reports that came way after the release. So I divide them into reactive one and proactive ones. The reactive ones, they were reported by people as they were using the apps, and they would go through the regular engineering bug report process on our tool One Stop. Localization was not part of this process, so we'd come across these reports by pure chance, either if we were tagged by the engineers who were aware of us and of what we do, or if we could catch them on Slack, which is our communication tool. Because we had no systematic eyes on these bug reports, we often not noticed that errors were being introduced, simply because it was not a professional team asking for changes, and the engineers would implement without checking with us. We missed quite a lot of these bug reports because of the nature of this process. So for the proactive bug reports, because these was the reactive side of it, For the proactive bug reports, it would be organized bug reporting with the local markets. So a lot of the time, local markets would tell us, we've noticed quite a lot of issue with this user interface or this part of the product. Could we have a place where we can drop everything we find? So that was the quality process. The issue we would solve then, I divide them into 4 categories: content, localization, design, and functional. We would be really good at catching content and localization issues. So content, you have your usual grammar, punctuation, style, inclusivity. For localization, you would have market proposal, cultural preferences, legal compliance. But when it came to design and functional issues, which are part of bug bashes and quality assurance, we wouldn't catch that many just because of the nature of the bug reporting process that I am going to explain in a minute. So this is where we knew we needed to improve. And this is the actual bug report process. If it's a bit overwhelming, that's exactly how it was. So this bug report process was used during QAs and organized bug reporting with the local markets. And it was happening all on spreadsheets. Why spreadsheets? Because our translators didn't have access to OneStop to start with, so they couldn't report on the usual bug reporting platform. But even if they did, and even if local markets had access to OneStop and could report there, it wouldn't be under my remit, as I explained earlier. It would be directly assigned to teams of engineers. So I wouldn't have a chance to check if the bug report is valid, and if not, make sure there was no introduction of errors. And I had no possibility to fix what I could actually fix on my end, which means that if there's something that the localization team needs to fix, the engineer would then have to find the relevant team, come to us, and then have us do it. So a whole loop instead of just straight away being sorted out by me. So when all the bugs were reported on the spreadsheet, I would then sort them out, make sure they were valid or not, and then create a one-stop ticket for each relevant bug. When you think about the fact that we had on average 60 bugs per QA, you can understand why it was extremely time-consuming. So the pain points in this process, I've said time-consuming a lot now. It was really time-consuming. It was very manual, from creating the bug logs to reporting them and tracking them, because while they were all on OneStop, it was not always easy to check which QA they belong to. There's an obvious lack of resources. I'm one person for all of the products, so planning, briefing, reporting, tracking, chasing, regression testing, all of this for one person. And then you had all the missed opportunities at the time. So as I mentioned, no visibility on the localization bugs that were reported on OneStop. But the other missed opportunity was that I was not meeting my bug reporters where they were. So we had all these employees testing or using our apps day-to-day in native languages, finding issues and not necessarily being able to reach us. The data was also hard to get. I mean, the data was available, but it was spread across many places, spreadsheets, and that was another time-consuming issue. And the biggest one was no early quality tests. So we were launching a product that was not up to our quality standards. There would be a big discrepancy between the English app and the app in other languages. And this is when imagining a solution became urgent. The solution appeared quite quickly to me. We had to embed localization in the existing bug reporting and testing processes. I had to think of a unique process that would apply for both my planned quality checks, so bug bashes, RQAs, QAs, regression tests, but also the spontaneous bug reports, no matter where they came from. So they could come from One Stop, as I mentioned, or the consumer app. And now you're going to wonder, why is she talking about the consumer app all of a sudden? Well, this is because while I was brainstorming and drawing this graph and thinking about my new process, a new tool became available to our employees. From there on, we were able to report bugs straight from the consumer app. So when we were using it from our phone, and all we had to do is take a screenshot on the app, and then it would automatically open a bug report that you could just file on your phone. So this was yet another place where localization needed to be present to avoid being blindsided and missing, again, bug reports. This unique process also needed to work for all my stakeholders. So in planned quality checks, I work with translators, localization managers, content designers, product designers, engineers, product managers. But then when I talk about spontaneous bug reportings, my stakeholders are all of Deliveroo employees. So I had to find really a solution that was working for everything and everyone. How did we build it? And the key sentence here is meet my stakeholders where they expect me to be. So One Stop was the first obvious place. It's the place where people know to report any kind of bugs. So I knew I had to invite localization to the engineering bug report process. I also had to make sure that my translators had access to it and can report directly on it. Then you have the consumer bug report tool, another addition to bug reporting. It is connected to One Stop. It generates tickets on it, but I had also to make sure that there was a space for localization in there for my stakeholders. And I also quickly realized that it could become a very powerful tool for our translators, for those working on the consumer app, because they could also benefit from the fact that they could report straight from their phone rather than having to take screenshots and then go to One Stop to report. And finally, Jira. So Jira is the tool the localization team uses with our translators for project management. And my idea was to create a personal Jira board that would be connected to both reporting places, so One Stop and the consumer bug report tool, where I could see and handle all of my bugs, but where I could also assign tasks to my translators. So it had to become this place where I was sorting out my bugs, assigning bugs that I couldn't fix to the different engineering teams, and the place where translators would come to check the jobs they had to do. And this is how we do it. So for One Stop, we created a dedicated localization category and a dedicated form. And any bugs that were filed under the localization form would be then directly assigned to me. They would also be automatically added to my personal Jira board. And the idea was that when they were added to my Jira board, I also wanted them to be automatically sorted under the right category or the right quality check. So if these bugs were reported during a quality check, be it like a bug bash or quality assurance, they would be automatically categorized under the right bug bash or quality assurance. And if they were spontaneous bug reports from someone using the app and finding them along the way, they'd go under a dedicated spontaneous bug report category. So on One Stop, localization quality follows the same workflow and the same delivery times as engineers. And by allowing both planned and spontaneous bug reports to be all on the same form, we totally got rid of the spreadsheets. So that was a very excellent news. The bug report tool, you have a little demo of it on the slide here. So on the bug report tool, we also created a dedicated bug category for localization. And once a bug report is created, what happens is that it goes automatically into a dedicated Slack channel. So this Slack channel is a great place for me to loop in my stakeholders, my reporters, and keep them informed of my progress in their preferred environment. Then The bug report would also appear as a one-stop ticket because it would generate an automated one-stop ticket, and it would be under the one-stop localization category. And finally, it would, as I mentioned earlier, also automatically sort itself out on Jira, and it would appear under the spontaneous bugs category. And finally, Jira. So this is where all the magic happens for me, where I spend most of my time. It is strongly automated. It is centralized. Planned or not planned bug reports are all in one place, no matter if they come from my one-stop form or from the consumer bug report tool. And this is where also my freelancers come to work, as I mentioned, to find their tasks. So I hope that this explanation made it seem like an obvious and an easy process. In reality, it was not as straightforward as this. It needed 9 pages of requirements, 6 engineers supporting me. We tested it for about 2 months to just nail it, and it took hours of video calls. And this allowed us to enter our new era of quality. And this is now how the timeline of quality checks looks like. So for now, quality check doesn't start after localization. They start at the localization stage itself with in-context translation. In-context translations, it's about creating design duplicates on Figma and letting the freelancers, the translators, test the translation before even validating them. So they can see right away if it works, if it fits the design. So this already saves a lot of time further down the line. And while we have LQAs after in-context translation, with this process, LQAs are often redundant, which is great news for our localization managers because it saves them a lot of time. However, LQAs can be necessary if there has been a lot of changes at the review stage by the local markets. Then it's worth checking that the design still looks okay with a new copy. The bug bashes is the biggest win for the localization team. As I said earlier, localization was never involved in bug bashes before that. Testing was performed by the engineers with no native speakers, no localization professionals. How it looks like now is that we test our products before launch in all languages and in all markets. We are systematically part of the bug bashes, and the translators support us during the test. They help check the copy alongside the design and the functionality. And I realized that by now you might think with all the previous check, we probably don't need to check the copy, the content yet again. But somehow we've always found errors along the way. For example, wrong copy being used or letters being detached from each other in Arabic, which leads to a nonsensical sentence. So our presence has helped engineers find functional design and content issues systematically that they couldn't spot themselves. And now the launch happened, and by the time it happens, we have reached a certain quality standard. We are now confident that our product is to this quality standard in every language. The QAs, so we still have QAs, but the nature of them has changed. They're now more about gaining insights and informing strategic decisions rather than catching issues that really should have been caught before the actual launch. Maintenance QAs, so the regular health checks on the app, is also possible due to the time we've managed to free. And finally, regression testing, they are now systematic. So after the fixes we do during bug bashes or QA, we test the app again to make sure they've been implemented properly. And we get support from our engineers because we work more closely, because they have more visibility on what localization quality is about. So all in all, a big success. And I'm very happy to say that the issues we now solved are all of them. We've ticked all the boxes. The big wins that we've had is we speak the same language. Our stakeholders already know the process. The company knows the process. We meet them where they expect me to be. When it comes to visibility, localization is present in all bug reporting touchpoints, so you can't avoid us. And we are integrated in the quality testing process with the wider team, with the engineers, with the PMs. It's all automated, so no more duplicating bugs, no more spreadsheets, and a lot of time saved. And finally, it's centralized. It's all in the same place, and it all follows the same process. And that's everything about localization quality at Deliveroo. Thank you very much.